Good morning and welcome to this webinar about the Arts and Humanities Research Council Doctoral Focal Awards. This is a new funding opportunity and I'm really happy to be able to present about it to you today. I'm also really glad that so many of you have found the time to join the live webinar. The order of the days as follows. We'll begin with a presentation that outlines the key characteristics of the scheme, timings, eligibility, etc. And the second part of the webinar will be a question and answer session. So this is the time for you to ask the AHRC staff who are present here with me today any questions you might have about this funding opportunity. My name is Aga Shivic. I'm a senior investment manager from the skills team at the AHRC. And here with me today are also colleagues from the operations team. So we've got Alison here who will be able to advise you on the sort of practicalities of applying on our new system, and also the head of skills, Dr. Sue Carver. You can submit your questions as I speak, and you can also vote for questions submitted by other people. One important note, because we have about 200 people in the room, we might not be able to go through all the questions submitted. So if something is really urgent and really burning and you'd like to hear the answer today, but after the webinar, you can put in your question your email address and we'll email you back. Alternatively, if you don't want to share the email in the Q&A, because that will then be visible for everyone else who's in the webinar, feel free to email us through our inbox, and that email address will be on one of the later slides. So in terms of the context for this new funding opportunity, I imagine that many of you are aware that the Arts and Humanities Research Council has undertaken an exercise of evaluating the doctoral provision that we have had so far. We've reached out to many community members. Probably some of you in the room were part of that as well through focus groups and surveys. And as a result, we have designed new schemes that have the best things from our previous schemes, but also have had certain changes made to them. So the Future Doctoral Provision Programme, as we call this whole activity, consists of doctoral landscape awards, and they include landscape awards themselves, and also the Collaborative Doctoral Partnership Scheme, and the Doctoral Focal Awards, which is the opportunity we are talking about today. If you are interested in the sort of contextual information, the findings of that community consultation, the slide here shows the cover of the report that we had published in October 2022, where you can see all the sort of source data, so to speak. The focal awards that we are presenting about today provide targeted support for strategic areas of skills needs. And the program itself has 5 principles that have emerged from that report that the previous slide mentions. And that is widening opportunities and welcoming innovative and diverse routes to doctoral training. You'll see further on one of the next slides that EDI is really a core aspect of this scheme and is a standalone assessment criterion. Then the second principle is to enable collaborative learning and peer support. Therefore, we do provide funding for cohort training. The third principle, enabling professional development and expanded skills capacity for the UK's future workforce. And the intention of those awards funded through the focal scheme is very much to prepare people for a diversity of careers. Then we have the principle for reducing bureaucracy, and I really strongly hope that using our new application system will result in reducing bureaucracy and that you'll find it more user-friendly than the JES or Joint Electronic Submission system that we've used so far. And finally, supporting and advocating for arts and humanities doctoral students within UKRI's Collective Talent Fund is the 5th principle. The Collective Talent Fund is the context in which we operate with other councils, and this is also why this funding opportunity is advertised and called Doctoral Focal Awards, to align it with other opportunities from other research councils. So some of you might have seen a pre-call announcement where we called it Focused Centres for Doctoral Training. Just to be absolutely clear, this is the very same funding opportunity. Very, very briefly, the strategic rationale for the focal awards is grounded in HRC's vision statement and theory of change, which is illustrated here on the slide by what we call donut diagram, where you can see skills being at the very center, at the core of everything we do, and so is equality, diversity, and inclusion. And the second sort of basis for the scheme is the UKRI Corporate Plan for 2022-25, which includes a priority objective of world-class people and careers to develop, attract, and retain talented people in our research and innovation system. Without further ado, let's talk about the aims of the Focal Awards. You see them here on the slide. The awards are supposed to deliver world-class doctoral training and development, including cohort experience. They will provide opportunities for students, preparing them to follow a diversity of career paths. They should address underrepresentation in the HRC-funded doctoral community. They should also support research capacity in strategic areas, addressing societal challenges through arts and humanities doctoral research. And we have slides that talk about the specific two themes for this funding call, for this funding opportunity, and I'll present about them in a little while. The remaining aims are to advance current understanding, generate new knowledge, and develop the breadth of expertise for the future of the research and innovation workforce, to address skills gaps identified across the research areas within and beyond academia, and to enhance collaboration and knowledge exchange within academia and between academia and other sectors. And that's for the benefit of the students themselves and then their career, for consortium members, who hopefully might, as a result, develop really strong partnerships that will go beyond the doctoral sphere, and for the benefit of the wider society. So you'll see that one of the very key aspects of those awards is that they must include collaboration with organizations outside of the academic sector. The themes that we are focusing on this time round are as follows. The first one is the arts and humanities for creative economy. And then we have the theme about the arts and humanities for a healthy planet, people, and place. Each proposal must fit within one of these two themes, so you have to choose one. They are very broadly defined, and that is on purpose, because we want to enable you and the students the creativity and the flexibility to address them. Both themes are interdisciplinary to an extent, but they also allow studentship proposals that will be 100% arts and humanities. On the slides, I've got some examples. I just wanted to sort of add a caveat that these are not exhaustive list. This is just to give you a flavor of what might you consider and what might the students consider in due time as well. So the arts and humanities for a healthy planet, people, and place theme is designed to address the interaction between environmental change, environmental factors that refer to the natural and socioeconomic conditions in which humans interact with each other, from pollution to nutrition and wellness and well-being. The consortia within the theme, and therefore individual student projects, should consider the different socioeconomic backgrounds and demographics of people and how that sort of plays in the healthy planet and place sphere. The second theme is focused on creative economy, and that takes a broad view of the skills and expertise that contribute to a thriving culture and creative sector. The consortia here and the studentships should explore developing and enhancing creative practice in different settings and contexts with positive impacts for diversity, skills, and growth. All applications within this theme should also directly address underrepresentation, and that is in response to quite a few independent reports that we're aware of and we have reviewed, which provide evidence of barriers and levels of underrepresentation in the creative economy or creative industries in the UK. So I'm not going to sort of repeat what's on the funding finder in terms of examples. I just want to send you to that content to read it in your own time. But once again, to emphasize, your application has to choose which of the two themes you're going to be focusing on. And I fully appreciate that there might be some uncertainty about academic discipline fit, especially when it comes to consortia that will be hopefully involving departments beyond arts and humanities and partners outside of academia beyond the arts and humanities. So if you have an idea for a training grant, but you're not 100% sure if there's going to be enough arts and humanities in it for it to be funded, if it is successful, I encourage you to use the remit query form and to send it to us before you finalize your application and before you submit it. In fact, as early as possible. The link is on the slide. I will ask my colleague George now to also put it in the chat for all of you to be able to see and copy. We very much welcome interdisciplinary proposals from interdisciplinary consortia, like I said, involving departments beyond arts and humanities, or maybe specialist institutions beyond arts and humanities. And we also very much welcome practice-based training and research within the proposals. Like I said earlier, it's really key that those training grants feature collaboration on the sort of governance level and also on the level of individual studentships. So each application has to have a named lead contact that must be a person employed at a research organization or university or higher education institution. Then you can have as many co-leading organizations as you wish, with the caveat that they must be also eligible for UK research and innovation funding. So there might be research organization, your co-leads, or there might be independent research organizations. And the third sort of part of this collaboration should be partners beyond academia. So the way we define a partner in this context is a non-academic organization which contributes to the design and delivery of the training grant. The bare minimum is to have 2 universities and 1 partner beyond academia on an application, but there is no maximum size of a consortium. So it's completely up to the applicants to decide how many will be manageable, how many will be beneficial for the training grant for the students, and to also provide in your application some information about how you will govern that collaboration and establish and run those equitable partnerships. The key thing to highlight is that individual research organizations are not eligible. This must be a group endeavor. And yes, you must justify added value of what the partners and the co-leads are bringing in, provide information about how you will govern the partnership. And also, I imagine some of you are in the current UKRI funded training grants, or specifically training grants funded by the AHRC. What I wanted to say is that both pre-existing and new collaborations are welcome. In terms of organizational eligibility requirements, each lead organization, like I already said, must be eligible for our funding. It must also demonstrate the ability to host a consortium model doctoral training grant in one of the 2 themes. The co-leading organizations must also be eligible for UKRI funding, and the organizations must have some track record. Not all the organizations must have it, but at least one in a consortium must have a track record of involvement in postgraduate provision. So it can either be the lead higher education institution or one of the co-leads. The lead higher education institution and non-higher education institution partners and consortia members or co-leads must co-create a strategy to ensure that the proposed training grant consortium's aims for student skills and career development will meet sector needs. And the opportunity is open to current award holders, to past award holders that might not at the moment hold any AHRC funded training grants, as well as for those higher education institutions and partners who have never had involvement in AHRC training grants or never had AHRC funding. In fact, we're really, really keen to have some like fresh blood, so to speak. Yeah, I just really wanted to emphasize there's no prerequisite to have had an AHRC training grant already. If you've never had one, you're still very welcome to apply, and everyone will be assessed on the same basis on merit based on the criteria that are on one of the later slides. So no one is going to be getting extra points for being currently in a training grant that is funded by the AHRC, so to speak. One specific group that we are trying to attract and address through this opportunity is specialist institutions or small specialist institutions. The definition I put on the slide comes from Universities UK, who ran a forum for such institutions, and they define them as higher education, as institutions that offer higher education courses and expertise focused around one specialism. Most of them are small in size and offer vocational programs at both undergraduate and postgraduate level, which means they have strong links with the industries and professions they prepare the students to enter. So from the arts and humanities space, that, for example, institutions such as the School of Oriental and African Studies and the University of Creative Arts and the Royal College of Art, they're all on that list. You can go to Universities UK website to see the full list. If you identify as a specialist institution, we'll be really, really pleased to see an application from you, either as a lead or as a co-lead or consortium member without the co-lead function. We are very much aware, however, that working in that kind of institution brings some challenges with itself. And if there are any specific ways AHRC can support you in the application process, we'd be really interested to hear from you. So you can either email us after this webinar, or you can come and talk to us live at the next webinar that we're going to be delivering on the 28th of February next year, which is dedicated just for small specialist institutions. Now, onto the eligibility requirements for individuals. Each lead applicant must be based at a UK higher education institution dedicated to training the new generation of arts and humanities researchers, have the vision to lead a consortium and the skills needed for that. So that's, for example, leadership, project management, stakeholder management skills, and administrative skills and capacity. We expect some evidence that you've got relevant experience appropriate to career stage. So I wanted to emphasize that the call is inclusive and there is no minimal level of seniority. You don't have to be a professor to be a lead on an application, as long as you meet the eligibility criteria and have the relevant skills and experience. So part of the application is also to demonstrate, this is the last bullet point on the slide, that you have in the past already contributed to developing a positive research culture and wider research community. Each project lead may submit a maximum of one application as the lead applicant. However, you are allowed to be a co-lead or involved in putting together an unlimited number of applications in total, but you cannot exceed the number of one application as the lead applicant. Obviously, putting together such an application is a mammoth effort and requires working as a team across organizations. So that part of the application form gives you space to tell us about other team members, not just the lead. So you can see on the slide here, there's a selection of roles you can choose. They include co-lead, grant manager, professional enabling staff, technicians. You don't have to have all those roles on your application, but you've got the freedom to add them. And I just wanted to also clarify that a co-lead is the equivalent of a co-investigator, a term that UKRI and AHRC used when funding opportunities were delivered on the JES system. You can list multiple co-leads, there's no maximum number here, but every co-lead is required to have an active role in running the award. If applicable to your team, you can list consortium members without the project lead or co-lead responsibility who are neither technicians nor have specific project management expertise as professional enabling staff. This is a very broad category. And the link at the bottom of the slide will take you to UKRI guidance on those new team roles. So if I could ask George to now put it in the chat for everyone to see, that would be amazing. I think you should also be able to see all the links that we're sharing with you and the resources within the Zoom chat. So if you click on the three dots that take you to sort of more options, there's one of the options there is resources. I wanted to talk a little bit about student numbers now. The funding that we're offering is for between 20 and 30 four-year-long studentships within each training grant. So every applicant can decide how they're going to split that, or what's the total number that they're going to apply for in terms of students. But the ratio has to be 3 to 3 to 2 to 2 over the 4 years. So we're going to have 4 cohorts. And to give you an example, the maximum number you might have here would be 9 students in the first cohort first year, then 9 students starting in the next year, then 6 and 6 again in the last 4th cohort. That gives 30 in total, but you can obviously apply for fewer if that's your preference. We very much encourage interdisciplinary proposals. And on that note, there is potential for co-funding from other parts of UKRI for successful inter or multidisciplinary awards. This is dependent on research area and remit and will be confirmed once the funding opportunity has closed for applications. So yeah, looking at the numbers, I just wanted to also inform you all that AHRC expects to make approximately 5 or 6 awards, but the final figure might be different because we'll have to calculate first the cost of studentships requested by the highest scoring applicants. What is the funding for? As you can see on the slide, this grant can be used for maintenance stipend, for tuition fees, for additional payments for students who live in London, additional stipend for 1 to 2 collaborative doctoral awards per cohort, cost of individual training and development, and cost of cohort training and development. And that will give you a specific way of calculating that is £1,200 per student per year. Important caveat to note, compared to some other funding opportunities for doctoral training out there in the landscape, is that within this funding opportunity, the AHRC is not covering administrative and project management costs. We expect the applicants to contribute with that. That might be in kind, that might be cash. The contribution from partners beyond academia is also mandatory, but it can be cash or in kind. Very briefly about the cohort activities. The purpose of cohort funding is to support innovative training and development for the wider cohort of HRC funded students. So we are not providing a list of eligible and non-eligible users for the cohort-based training funding in order to allow consortia the freedom to address the needs of your distinctive cohorts. However, if you have any ideas and are uncertain about them, you can also approach us via email before you submit your application. Please note that these activities should be accessible to the entire cohort of your HRC funded students. Now, resources justification. When you come to populating the application form, you will see there's a section there about resources justification. That's where we ask you for information about the number of full-time studentships you're applying for, how many of them might be based at institutions in London, the number of collaborative doctoral awards in each cohort, and here we can support a maximum of 2 CDAs, collaborative doctoral awards, in each of your cohorts. So a maximum of 8 CDAs in total. You may indicate more if you're able to co-fund beyond the number HRC can support. What we also ask you in this justification is that you let us know what's the outline of your proposed types of individual student development activities. They will be funded by a research training support grant from the HRC, which the amount of which is likely to be comparable to what HRC is currently offering as a research training support grant to our existing consortia. We are also asking you to give us an outline and cost of proposed cohort development activities and provide a little bit of narrative about your training and development program for students. You will see when you start populating your applications that there is a resources form which is embedded on the system and which you'll have to download, put information in, and then upload it onto the system so we can review it. Now, areas of skills you must develop in students. Very, very broadly, all focal awards must offer a core set of skills training related to the research discipline, and also training for a breadth of transferable and interdisciplinary skills. Students will be able to select depending on needs and experience, with some mandatory training. And we also expect that your application will tell us which parts of your training program will be mandatory. So this next slide here lists all the parts of the skills sort of offering that we expect the applications will provide for. So we've got areas such as project management and organizational skills here, public engagement, and engaging with the media, impact of research projects, engagement with policy making, commercializing research, skills related to using digital tools, and skills for practice-based research. So this is all up for you as the applicants to consider how your future training grant might be able to train students in those areas. And I thought it'd be good to also explain what does the AHRC mean actually by collaborative doctoral awards, which I've mentioned a few minutes ago, because I'm not sure if all of you are aware of this concept. In a nutshell, collaborative doctoral awards are doctoral research projects which are collaboratively and equitably developed and delivered by a higher education institution and a non-higher education institution partner. They must align with the partner's area of activity and have some impacts beyond academia. Every student who is on the CDA award will have 2 supervisors as a result, one within and one beyond academia, and will spend up to half of their studentship time in the non-academic organization. This is to provide sort of on-the-job experience for them. Funding from the AHRC is available to support 1 or 2 CDA awards per cohort, subject to demand, like I've already mentioned. And yes, you're very welcome to co-fund more CDAs. A very important part of this scheme and the application process and assessment process is equality, diversity, and inclusion. The whole of AHRC has an ambition to increase the diversity of our funded population in general and our doctoral student population specifically. We also want to be reassured that all the students will be part of an inclusive environment and receive the support they need. Therefore, we ask you to prepare and submit an equality, diversity, and inclusion action plan as part of this application process. And this slide here lists proposed headings that you are very welcome to use when you write and structure your EDI action plan. On the system, when you apply, these are not pre-populated. What you will see, you'll see guidance, and then you'll see a free text box. So you can put those headings there. You can also add more headings. You can also decide to change the wording a little bit, but these are essentially the areas that we want to see covered by every plan. And every plan must also be evidence-based. And that means providing HRC with evidence of your proposed actions with application, but also later on, if you are successful and receive an award, monitoring the statistics and gathering qualitative information as well throughout the lifetime of the grant, so you can adjust your EDI activities to achieve desired impacts. The assessment criteria within this funding opportunity are as follows. The vision of the proposed training grant, the approach or the practicalities of how you will deliver it, what will you offer to students, how will you govern your partnerships, etc. The EDI aspect or the EDI action plan, capability to deliver, and that is about the lead's capability to deliver and the capability of the entire team. So here we ask you to use the narrative CV or the resume for research and innovation format. You've got a very generous word count of 2,000 words to describe the background of all the team members in one collective CV. Then the next assessment criterion is also ethics and responsible research and innovation. Further, resources and cost justification, which I've already talked about. Also, higher education institutions support, and to evidence that, we ask you to upload letters of support on the system. And the final assessment criterion is the strength, diversity, quality of partnerships. All those criteria will be weighed equally in the assessment process, and the descriptions or questions to guide you in writing your application to meet the criteria are available on the application system. And that application system is the funding service. So a few words very briefly on the funding service right now. It is a new system, and the AHRC Doctoral Focal Awards is the very first UKRI doctoral training grant funding opportunity on the system. So on one hand, we're very excited to be able to launch it on the platform, which was designed after extensive user research and is supposed to be more user-friendly. On the other hand, if you do notice some technical problems or some issues with how the opportunity is structured, for technical problems, there's the TFS help desk that can assist you. And for things related to the nature of our call specifically, you can get in touch with us at the AHRC, and we can provide advice. The two links here are to the UKRI guidance on using TFS, and then a very, very brief 5-minute video about navigating the system. I was going to play this video in today's webinar, but then I came to a conclusion that it's better to spend the 5 minutes answering your questions, and you can watch the video in your own time. The key thing to remember is that you must create an account on the funding service to be able to apply, and also that it's got the functionality to enable you to save unfinished applications, so you can come back to a work in progress application. We're getting to the end of the presentation now, so I just wanted to summarize the timings of this funding opportunity here, or highlight the key milestones and deadlines for everyone. The call went live on the 23rd of November, and the final deadline for applications is the 2nd of July 2024 at 4 p.m. UK time. So please don't leave it until midnight to press the submit button, because you won't be able to apply. Webinars for potential applicants are happening throughout that period. So obviously we're doing the one today. Then there's a webinar for small specialist institutions on the 20th of February. And then we also have 2 more events, which will happen on the 20th of March and 20th of June 2024. So feel free to put the dates in your diary. Registration is on Eventbrite, just like for today. But the nature of those events will be slightly different. Namely, I won't be doing a presentation. None of my colleagues will be doing a presentation. This will be space for questions and answers, purely for conversation, purely for clarifying things, etc. So you can bring your questions to this, to the 20th of March or 20th of June surgery. They are not presentations, they are surgeries. Then we'll be running a peer review process between late July 2024 to mid-January 2025. And that will conclude with a moderation panel meeting in February 2025, following which we hope to be able to announce outcomes in May or June 2025. Then obviously the successful applicants will start recruiting their students, and the first cohort of students will begin in October 2026. And then the final cohort will start in the year 2029 to 30, which feels like really so far ahead, but yes, it's for 4 cohorts, 4 years full-time or equivalent part-time. That's what the funding is for. And just one more thing to make you all aware of is that AHRC will undertake portfolio balancing at the panel stage as well. So the panel will provide advice to enable AHRC to create a balanced portfolio of focal awards from among the highest quality proposal. And in balancing, the panel will consider the following 3 aspects of the fundable proposal: diversity of higher education institution types and partner organizations. This is to ensure that all funded consortia are diverse and collaborate with a diverse group of partners. the actual research focus, because we don't want to have 6 awards in one theme and none in the other. We want to try and fund a balanced group. And finally, geographic coverage, to ensure that the new training grant awards are located in a range of regions across the United Kingdom. Support for applicants, like I said, we've got a few more online events coming up. You can also email us at any time. Please message enquiries at ahrc.ukri.org. This is if you have questions regarding the nature of the call. If you encounter any technical problems with the application system, then there's the TFS help desk here. You can see their email address on the slide. There's also a landline, and yes, that's where you can get help with navigating the new system. This is all I wanted to say, so thank you so much for paying attention to the presentation. I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now, and we will move on to the Q&A part of today's event. Let me just close the slide deck on my other screen so I can see other resources that I need to refer to. Okay, lovely. The list of questions is massive. I can already see 68 of them. Some have been upvoted or have more than one person voting for them. So I'll try and go through them kind of chronologically, but also clustering. And I apologize in advance that we won't be able to tackle all of them. Like I said, there's other ways of getting advice from us. So right from the top, a question that got 5 votes. So there will be financial support for cohort training rather than only studentships. Yes, that is correct. 1,200 per student per year. And we ask you to put that in your application form. I'm gonna just mark that as answered. Then we have a question whether the Q&A will be available to attendees afterwards. We're recording the entire webinar, so all the questions that we'll manage to tackle in the next 20 minutes will be part of the recording indeed. A question that I think I'm going to ask Helen, my colleague Helen, who is the specialist here on the health and humanities domain to answer. From George Adamson, to what extent do you expect the second theme to be both health and environment? Helen, are you happy to?
Yeah, sure. So I think that we're really interested in sort of the interconnectedness of both of these themes of people, planet and place, and so I mean I think there's various entry points you could think about that, but I think that we are really interested in this interaction and interconnectedness between the different thematic areas within the healthy planet, people and place, and the sort of complex relationship between people and place and well-being and health. So I think there's lots of different, but that I think it would also kind of need to sort of see a sort of a remit question as well in terms of what that would particularly look like. But yes, I think there's definitely an expectation that it would bring in this interconnection element.
Thank you. And Nicola has a very similar question here, so I guess you sort of partially answered that, but I'm going to read it out anyway. Does a bid for Arts and Humanities for a Healthy Planet, People and Place have to cover the whole of that remit? So inclusive of all 3 elements, including placemaking, is this what we want to see in every application?
Again, I think it's this sort of interconnectedness of those different themes, and I think that's really what is the core. And so it might be maybe more on health or more on place, but we would still want to see those different thematic areas sort of pulled in as part of an application.
Yeah, I think just to build on that, Aga, if you don't mind, I think both of the themes are very broad in their scope. So I don't think we would really expect applications to cover all elements of either theme. we need to see a balance in the applications between not being too narrow and not being too broad. So I think that it would be up to you as the applicant, working with your partners, both HI and non-HI, to develop what you think is a feasible scope for your theme within what you propose to do and the number of students that we're able to support through these awards.
Thank you, Sue. And on a similar note, we have a question about the other theme, which also received 6 votes. How broadly are AHRC interpreting the creative economy in this funding opportunity? Would you be happy to take that question, please?
So again, I think you'll have seen the sort of scope that we've set out in the funding opportunity. But as I've said for my previous reply, we're not expecting you to cover everything within that, and there is some flexibility. We've given examples within there, but again, they're not rigid examples. There is flexibility, so it's a little bit difficult to answer. It's a little bit how long is a piece of string, but yes, I think use that what we've said in the funding opportunity as guide for how broad we might want to be in the creative economy.
Thank you. There's a question here about terminology. With the change of the names of funding streams to focal awards, are we, I assume that means applicants and universities, still using the Centres for Doctoral Training term? Just to know that focal awards terminology does not make much sense to prospective students and other stakeholders. The terminology Centre for Doctoral Training is so much clearer, as it signals a community and cohort. Focal award does not. Could we advise on that? So I'm going to start by saying that the full name is Doctoral Focal Awards, not just Focal Awards. So that aspect that this is doctoral training is definitely there. Secondly, this is to move away from the acronyms and to, we hoped, start using terminology that is more intuitive. So actually, I'm a little bit surprised to hear that it doesn't maybe land that way just yet, but because UKRI has only made an announcement about the changes to terminology and schemes on the 2nd of November, so that's quite recently, and is harmonizing that doctoral offering and therefore the names of the schemes. I would hope that in due time, the brand of Doctoral Focal Awards, so to speak, will start being recognized, and what it stands for will be clearer to the community. This is also why we run webinars like today, to spread that awareness. And I think in the recruitment process in due time, it'll be really key for successful award holders to emphasize that to candidates for studentships, that the partnership is definitely there. And it's definitely about projects that are often interdisciplinary, and projects that are often with some kind of experience beyond academia, and that tackle those strategic challenges. So would you like to add anything to that in terms of the terminology?
No, I think we've covered everything there. Thank you, Aga.
Thank you. I'm just going to scroll and see if there's any more questions that have very many votes. Are we able to indicate future themes for these focal doctoral awards? Not yet. I can only advise patience. The first call was developed at pace, and we have consulted internal and external stakeholders in the process, but we are hoping to give the community, or more stakeholders from the community, an option to give us some inspiration for future calls. So until that happens, we are not in a position to establish the themes. Scrolling down through questions that had more votes. One from Rebecca. You mentioned portfolio balancing for geographical region. Is there a requirement for individual consortia to be concentrated in one region? If, for example, a university has 2 campuses in different regions, would this mean one of the campuses would be excluded from participation? Quite the opposite. There's no requirement to be concentrated in one region at all. I think that portfolio balancing, just to clarify, is more about looking at the spread of the awards and avoiding clustering in one place, rather than mandating being based in the geographic sort of vicinity of each other. So would you like to add anything to that?
No, that's fine, thank you.
Thank you. We have questions. Just checking again. I've voted.
I think there is a suggestion that we try and sort by the number of
Yes.
people, and there is one here about the small number of awards and the huge amount of interest.
Yes, absolutely. Only one I saw through is, oh no, I can see that now. Amazing. Thank you for that tip. A question that received 31 votes, so I think really very many of you are keen to find out. Given the small number of awards to be made in total and the huge amount of interest, this is creating a lot of work within the system that will be wasted. What plans does AHRC have for minimizing this inefficiency? How about expressions of interest then for applications? So can I direct that question to you, please?
Yeah, thank you, Aga. We did think hard about whether we should have an expression of interest stage, because we were aware that there would be quite a lot of interest for these themes. In the end, we decided we wouldn't go down that route because we wanted to give people the maximum amount of time to actually apply for this opportunity. And if we'd introduced an expression of interest stage, we would have had to reduce the time that people could work together. So we're really keen to see innovative partnerships grow and innovative consortia come out of these awards, and to really think about the training that's being offered to meet the needs of the theme. So we felt it was better to give people the maximum amount of time that we could to develop those relationships and those new ideas. So that's why we decided, but we do recognize there is a significant amount of work in putting together these sorts of bids. We certainly don't underestimate that, and we did think long and hard about what was the best way forward.
Thank you. A question with 22 votes from Rachel. Are PhD stipends at home rates only, or will AHRC cover international student rates? Would we therefore expect universities and partners to provide some top-ups to cover international fees? So could we give some clarification about that aspect of international students?
Yeah, so as now, we would only pay for the home rates for students. So it's the same policy as we have currently across UKRI.
Thank you. And on a similar note, we've got a question with 12 votes about partners. And institutions in general, could institutions from abroad participate? Do all institutions or non-academic organizations need to be within the UK? Eligibility to be a lead institution, a co-lead institution, is such that you have to be based in the UK. However, we very much welcome consortia members and partner organizations from other countries as well. If you're able to build those kind of connections, then I'm sure that's going to be very beneficial for future students. Another question is about a different scheme. So I'm not sure if we're in a position actually to take that question now. It's about the number of landscape awards compared to the focal awards. Anonymous attendee is curious, how many landscape awards are we going to fund compared to the 5-6 focal ones?
Yeah, we're hoping to provide more information about landscape next year, but I'm afraid we're not able to answer that question at the current time.
Thank you. A question about non-academic institutions. If such an institution, for example, a museum or a gallery, is an independent research organization, would they have to be a co-lead, or could they be the partner beyond academia? They can be both. We don't mandate that. It's really up to the teams that put applications together to decide who's got the capacity to fulfill what function. The benefit in this context is that if you are an independent research organization, if you work in an independent research organization, then yes, you can be a named co-lead on that application, which for your institution and for you personally might be a very beneficial thing, but equally you can just join a consortium as a partner. Sorry, that question's dropped down my list now. What is the funding expectation in terms of project partners? Someone's is asking, 11 votes for that question. Is there a base amount? Because on other UKRI awards, there's a base amount of £42,500 apparently. So could you take that question, please?
No, we don't set any expectations about how much funding partners. We have said for this call we would like there to be at least in-kind support, but there can also be cash support. But if they put in, but we're not setting any expectation on what that cash support would be.
Thank you. We've got a couple of questions about CDA, so I'll try and sort of read them in conjunction. It's basically about the numbers. Are the numbers of CDAs per year in addition to the 20 to 30 studentships, or within that allocation of 20 to 30 studentships per grant? Someone has asked that question anonymously, and then Anya has asked a very similar question as well. So sorry, can I ask you to step in, please?
So, sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, is the allocation for CDAs the fact that we can fund up to 2 CDAs per cohort? Are those studentships within the 20 to 30 per each training grant, or in addition to 20 to 30 per training grant?
That would be within the 20 to 30 per training grant. So what it is with the CDAs is that we provide a top up to the stipend. So this is essentially how much of a top up we're able to provide, but it would be open to consortia to provide that top up themselves. So they could potentially increase the number of CDAs they support within the student cohort if they were in a position to put in additional funding to provide that additional stipend.
Thank you very much. I've spotted 2 questions regarding master's degrees, if you're happy to take these on, Sue, as well. The first one is, are you open to 1+3 provisions to open up doctoral studies to students without a master's degree? And the second question is, will students require master's level qualifications for eligibility, or is the scope for the programs to include integrated masters? So they're basically asking about the same thing.
So we wouldn't be able to support master's students through this particular call, but I guess what we would probably be open to is if within the 4 years people were, if they didn't have a master's, they were able to do some additional training perhaps in the first year to bring them up to speed. So we wouldn't be doing a 1+3 model, but there might be scope, as I say, to perhaps do some master's type training in the first year if the students or student cohort needed that.
Thank you. I'm going to take some questions now that are slightly further down the list, but about aspects that we haven't talked about yet. The first one is about the EDI action plans. We've got a question. What evidence are we looking for within the EDI action plans? Evidence that plans or interventions exist, or evidence to suggest that they will succeed? First and foremost, we want evidence of the baseline. What's the current sort of status quo in the doctoral cohort in community in your areas, and where do you see underrepresentation or needs that need to be addressed through the EDI action plan? So you can show us where are your actions actually stemming from, and what are they supposed to improve or have an impact on. And then throughout the lifetime of the training grant, we would like to see the kind of monitoring of the change that is happening if your training grant is actually having that positive change on the underrepresentation in the community. The next highest voted question is whether we're going to fund 5 or 6 awards in total or per theme. In this funding opportunity is in total. However, we will have future funding opportunities within the focal scheme, so there will be more awards in the future. Then I saw some questions here about principal investigators or lead applicants, to use the new terminology. Are PI or co-I lead salaries eligible costs? No, we're not covering that. The funding, the costs can be used for all the sort of aspects of the award that I have already discussed presenting one of the slides. So no staff salaries. We expect that to be a contribution from the consortia members. And then there was another question about PI. Do you expect the PI or lead applicant to have a demonstrable track record in postgraduate provision, or just the lead organization more broadly? So in the team that puts together an application, there has to be a person that has a demonstrable track record in postgraduate provision, but it could be one of the co-leads. This is to enable more diverse groups of people to lead those applications. So yeah, one of the co-leads or the lead applicant, therefore one of the organizations involved in leading the entire consortium has to show it. And this is why we have a sort of collective narrative CV where you can describe it. Timing, Sue, I'm not sure if you'd be able to or happy to take that question on. This is the next most voted question, and we are at 12 o'clock now. So when is the AHRC anticipating the next AHRC call for focal awards coming? For those looking at timelines and trying to weigh up applying for this or a later call.
Yes, we haven't actually worked out the timeline, but we're hoping that it will probably be in 2 years' time that we'll do the next one. And we don't know what that will be. So, but we haven't actually pinned down the timeline for future calls yet.
Thank you very much. And I think we will finish at that because it is 1 minute past 12 now. I appreciate there's lots of questions left unanswered. Like I said, you're very, very welcome to contact us directly via email or join the surgeries in due time. And we are very, very pleased that there's so much interest in the community about this funding opportunity. So thank you so much for coming to this online webinar today. The recording will be published, so don't worry if some of your colleagues weren't able to watch it live, or if you would like to refer to it in the future. We'll just need to sort of make sure that it's uploaded online as soon as possible, and it will be linked to the UKRI funding finder text for this opportunity. So once again, thank you so much for your active participation, for all the important questions, and what I can say is just good luck in putting your applications together and building those partnerships to apply for the new Focal Awards scheme. Thank you so much on behalf of myself and all the other AHRC colleagues in the room. Goodbye, everyone.